What's going on, guys? It's New York Prepper here. Just wanted to do another overlooked SHTF prep, and what that prep is a pair of bolt cutters. Okay, basic pair of bolt cutters. I have a small pair, and then I have a larger pair, and I have actually an even bigger pair than this. But you know, bolt cutters are important because especially for a grid down scenario, or if you're bugging out, or if it's a get home situation, or it could even be an I'm never coming home situation, an inch situation. And you know, bolt cutters, they'll help you gain entry into certain areas that you need to gain entry into. So you could use your own imagination to determine, which areas you would want to gain entry to. But basically, I have a sling here, and I actually attached the sling so I can actually sling this. I can sling this bolt cutter over my body here, just like this. And then, so if I'm, let's say, moving through an area, see if I got it on backwards or not. Let's say I'm moving through an area. I have this, I can sling this right here. I'll show you guys how I have it set up. If let's say I'm moving, if I'm moving through an area, I can have this slinged across my back. And let's say I need to, quickly move through an area. There may be fences in the way, and I need to cut through the fence without being observed. There may be people, there may be bad guys observing the fence, or I may need to cut through a bolt to gain entry somewhere. I can have this slung around my body, and then all I got to do is just run up to the fence, cut it quickly, and then I can sling it back, and my hands are free. If I need to move the fence out of the way or move something, whatever it is, if let's say I cut a lock for to gain entry to like a door or some kind of fence, some type of gated fence or something, having this sling attached to my bolt cutter gives my hands freedom. If I need to draw a firearm at this point, I can draw my firearm out, and the bolt cutters will stay on me. If I need to, I can just throw them to the back, get them out of the way, and then I can just keep traveling. Let's say you have to do some type of a raid or an assault, a preemptive action against a group of marauders, and you need to penetrate their perimeter defense. You have to cut through their fencing, to gain entry into their compound or something like that. And we're talking about like a, really, really bad, post-SHTF environment where you may have groups of marauders and bad guys that have their own compounds, and you may need to take preemptive action against them. If they've grown to the size where they're a threat to you, and you've seen them, kill people and do things, really horrific things, you may need to gain entry and do preemptive action against them, which I'm going to do a separate video about preemptive action and raids after SHTF, because I feel that that's a topic that a lot of preppers are not thinking about. A lot of preppers think, defensively rather than offensively. And if it's a really long-term SHTF scenario, you may need to perform offensive actions in order to secure your area. If let's say there's, like I said, some type of group of marauders, and that they have a compound, you may need to raid the compound and detain people there, or whatever, do whatever you have to do. And having the bolt cutters will really help in that situation. But also, if we're talking about a grid down event, bolt cutters are very handy for gaining entry. If let's say you're bugging out on foot, or you're getting home from a urban area, and let's say you work in an urbanized area or even a semi-rural suburban area, there's always fences, in an urban area, in a suburban area, you're always going to have, fencing. Fencing is pretty much everywhere, even in the countryside. And if you run into a really tall fence, and you have your gear with you, it may be difficult to negotiate that fence. If it's like a chain link fence and it has, it may even have some barbed wire, or sometimes what they'll do is they'll leave the top of the fence will have those little spikes, from the chain link. They leave those spikes, so it's like really hard to climb over because there's no actual pipe on the top of the fence. They leave the spikes. And in situations like that, you don't want to be stuck behind the fence, figuring out, how to get through the fence for an hour, and possibly endangering yourself. Or if you're with your wife and kids, or somebody who's a little less physically capable, they may not be able to climb the fence like you can, and it may be more risky for them to try to climb the fence. And it's easier to just cut your way through. If you can just cut a small opening, that's 10 times better than having to negotiate a really tall fence. Or like I said, if they have barbed wire on the fence, or sometimes they leave the actual chain links on the top and they don't put a pipe on the top. And in that case, that's also dangerous, because when you get to the top of the fence and you try to climb over, those chain links are going to dig into your foot if you put your foot on the top, or if you try to, roll over it, it's going to dig into your stomach. So same thing with barbed wire. So that's a big reason why I keep bolt cutters handy, is, for if I have to escape from an area, whether it's, whatever the situation is, I need to get out and I need to escape as quickly as possible. And I'm, moving through an area, I'm escaping and I'm evading. I don't want to be stuck behind a fence for half an hour or even 5 or 10 minutes, because if there's somebody behind me, or if it's a grid down event, people could be, on my trail. Somebody could be tracking me, and if I come across a fence and I can't negotiate it quickly, they can catch up to me. There may even be a wild animal tracking me, like a group of wild dogs, and I come across a fence, I can't get over it. You don't want to be trapped in a situation like that. So same thing if you have people in your family that are less physically capable and they can't climb fences. Same thing if you need to, for whatever reason, you have to cut like a lock, a combination lock, or one of those types of locks, which you'll commonly see on like gates. A lot of people will have those on gates. You'll have just like a chain, and the chain will be put together with a lock. And I'm not advocating burglary or anything illegal, but if it's a SHTF situation and the grid is down and there's no power, there may be abandoned homes, there may be abandoned buildings, businesses, there may be abandoned areas that you need to enter in order to find resources, or to shelter for the night, or to shelter from the elements, or to provide some concealment from possible bad guys around the area who may be roaming around. And you may need to gain entry into an area like that, and sometimes the only way to do that is to get through a lock, and you need to cut your way through a lock. A lot of times too, sometimes roads will be closed off, and if you need to get through a road and somebody closed off the road, you may need to cut your way through the lock. But in a grid down environment, post SHTF, you're going to really want to have a pair of bolt cutters. It's just, to me, they're very useful. Aside from, entry, if you need to enter somewhere or get through a fence or something like that, you can also use this for like cutting sheet metal, various types of chores, that you may need. If you have to cut some type of metal, whatever that is, this will come in handy. And this may also come in handy if you have to borrow, somebody's bicycle, or, different type of equipment that may be locked up. And, if it's a SHTF world, a post-SHTF world, and, you know, if, like I said, if somebody, you know, if you're moving through an area and it's abandoned and there's nobody there, everybody left the area, and you may come across, let's say, a bicycle, or you may come across some other type of method of transportation where you need to bust your way through and cut your way through, and that's where a bolt cutter will help you out. So again, this is not, you know, I'm not advocating burglary or breaking into people's homes during SHTF, or, you know, getting entry into areas that are fenced off and trespassing or anything like that. What I'm saying is, if it's a grid down event and it's post SHTF and you really need to get entry into an area because the area may already be abandoned, or, you know, you may have to get through a fence, you know, bolt cutters will really be a big help in that situation. So and I mean, there's just a myriad of things that bolt cutters are good for. So they're definitely handy to keep around your bug out bag and your bug out location. So that's pretty much it, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Take care. God bless.